Hey there, welcome to your multiplication and division review. One of the first things we talked about was factors. Factors are numbers that divide evenly into a given number. So let's take a look at the factors of 24. The way I normally do it is I think about it as multiplication. So what numbers will multiply together to get to 24? So I've got 1 times 24, so 1 and 24 are both factors. I've got 2 times 12 will work. I've got 3 times 8 will work. And I've got 4 times 6. And I think that's it. So if I'm looking at the factors of 24, it's really 1, 24, 3, 8, 2, 12, 4, and 6. I'll let you do factors of 100 by yourself. Now let's talk about multiples. Multiples really, it's just really skip counting by a given number, and I usually give an upper limit as to how far you should go. So if you were doing multiples of 8, you would do 8, 16, 24, etc. until you got to 80. I'm going to ask you to do this one here yourself. So what are the multiples of 100 and stop at 1,000? Give that one a shot. The other thing we did was some basic multiplication. We did it as a Mad Minute, but you're going to have to know your times table for this test. So 2 times 4 is 8, of course. 5 times 6 is 30, etc. 10 times 10 is 100. So you need to know those basic multiplication times, your multiplication times table. We looked at 3 different ways to do multiplication. I'm going to start with the array method. In the array method, you look at the numbers you're multiplying, 12 times 21, and you pull them apart into their different parts, and then you multiply inside the individual boxes, and later you're going to add it up. This way here, we're doing it like we did in the classroom with the base 10 blocks. So if I was figuring this one out, I would say 10 times 10 is 100, so 100 blocks looks like this. 10 times 1 is a 10. I'm going to just draw a line for that. And 10 times 1 is also a 10. 10 times 10 is another 100. 10 times 1 is a 10. 10 times 1 is a 10. 1 times 10 is a 10. And 1 times 1 is a 1. And 1 times 1 is a 1. So when I add all this up, I've got a 200. I've got this one and this one. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 50s. And finally, I've got 2 left over. So the answer is 252. That's one way you could do it. The other way you could do it, if I don't give you the blocks, is just use it with numbers. So let's say I put the 11 on this side. So the 11 really ends up being a 10 and a 1. And the 20 ends up being a 20 and a 2. And then I just multiply it into the different boxes and add up. So the 10 times 20 is really 200. And the 10 times 2 is a 20. And down here, I'm going to do 20 times 1 is a 20. And 2 times 1 is a 2. And then I would just add those up to give me a total of, I think, 242. In the lattice method, what you do is you write the numbers along the side. So the numbers are going to go here and here. And then you multiply in the boxes. When you do a multiply, similar to the array, the 10's number goes up here, and the 1's number goes in the lower half of that particular box. Let's take a look. So I'm going to say 67 times 56. And I'm first going to go 7 times 6. 7 times 6 is 42. 4 is a 10, so it goes in the upper. And 2 is the 1, it goes in the lower part of the box. Then 7 times 5 is 35. 5 times 6 is 30. And 6 times 6 is 36. And then what I do is I add straight down like this in these rows. What this method's done is this is going to be the ones. These are all in the 10 section. These are all in the 100 section. These are all in the 1,000 section. So let's do some adding. So, pardon me, 2 by itself is a 2. 5 plus 4 is 9. Plus 6 is 15. So I put the 5 here. And I'm going to carry the 1, stick it up there I'm going to use it in the next adding section. So 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7, and the 3 comes over here. So the answer, even though it goes around the corner, is 3,752. So this is another way of doing it. It's really very effective for large numbers. This is the second method that you can use for multiplying. So let's say you have to do a lattice by yourself. You're doing a 2 by 2 lattice. That's going to be a square. So I draw my 2 by 2, and then I basically just start sectioning this stuff off. If you have to make a lattice, that's kind of how it would look like. Okay, now regular multiplication. This is the one that we were taught if you're my age or your parents' age. And I'm going to call this just the algorithm, because it's just, a series of steps you have to follow to multiply. When you get a chance in a word problem, for example, to multiply, you can use the algorithm if that's fast for you. You can use the lattice if you want to do that. Or you could do also the array. It's up to you, whatever method you want to choose. So this is how this one works. I'm going to go 6 times 5. 6 times 5 ends up being 30. I put the 0 down here, and I put the 3 up here for later. 4 times 6 is 24, plus a 3 from 4 is 27. So now it's time to multiply with the 5 here in the bottom, but that 5 really, it's not really a 5, it's a 50. So it's really 50 times 5 and 50 times 4. In order to indicate that, I kind of have to make sure I don't put anything here. The next numbers are going to start here. So there's a couple of things you can do. One thing you do is add a 0 to the second row, and that will make sure that you don't stick something in there. Or you can leave it blank. A lot of people just leave it blank, and if you leave it blank, just got to make sure that you start with your first number in the multiplying comes down here. So let's do that. 5 times 5 is 25, so the 5 goes up here. Put a 2 up top. And 4 times 5 is 20, plus a 2 is 22, and I add that together, 0, 12, so let's carry the 1 up there, and that's a 5, and that's a 2. So that'll be 2,520. If you're in grade 5, you need to know how to multiply 2 by 2. And if you're in grade 6, it's really 4 by 2 you need to know. Let's do this one really quickly. The numbers are a little bit easier with the 2's in the bottom. So 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 5 is 10, carry the 1. 2 times 4 is 8, plus the 1 is the 9. Stick a 0 in there, and I'm going to repeat what I just did. 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 5 is 10, carry the 1 again. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9, and when I add it up, I get 6, 0, carry the 1, 5, 9, 9. So 99,506. This is the basic algorithm method. Okay, sometimes when we do multiplication, we want to know whether our our answer is reasonable. So here's a question here. 39 times 41, and the answer posted is 1,599. Is that a reasonable answer? So you're going to estimate for reasonableness. Really, when I see the word estimation, I'm thinking often of trying to round the numbers. Now, these numbers are very roundable, the ones I've selected here. So the 39 here, let's change that to a 40. And the 41, again, let's also change that to a 40. We've rounded a little bit up and a little bit down. So really, I'm hoping the number is going to be pretty close. And when I multiply that together, 4 times 4 is 16. And then I'm going to add the 2 zeros on afterwards. It gives me 1,600. 1,600 is super close to 1,599. So you know what? I think my calculation's okay. I'm going to ask you now to take a look at this one and see if you think this one is reasonable. I'm thinking the 98, you'll change that to 100. And I'm changing the 51, I'm thinking you'll change that to 50. Give it a shot. Let's talk about multiplication of round numbers. Now, this is really a two-step process. Step number 1 is you just multiply the initial whole numbers. So in 60 times 9, in 60 times 9, step 1 is just worrying about the 6 and the 9. 6 times 9 is 54. So that's step 1. Step 2 then is you have to then add the zeros that are left over. So a 0 from the 60, a 0 from the 90, and that will give me my answer. in order to multiply large round numbers, you first worry about the whole number, and then worry about the zeros afterwards. Try the rest. So I showed everyone two different ways of doing division, and you can choose which way you like. Although in the test, I'm going to ask you to show me some of this way here, side adding, and some of the traditional long division as well. So here we go. To do the side adding, you start with kind of a hangman looking thing, and it goes down something like that. I'm going to divide 492 by 3. 492 by 3. So what I'm really looking for is I'm looking for trying to remove large groups of 3 out of this number. I look for maybe a times 10 or a times 20 or even a times 100 to really be daring. I'm going to try to remove 300 out of here. So if I remove 300, that's really 100 groups of 3 that I'm removing. And I'm going to end up with, when I do the subtraction, 192. So that works out. So now I'm going to take out a group of 60. So 60 is really, if I times 3 times 20, then I'll end up with 213. Okay, so I'm working on this. How about I take out 120 this time? 120 should be 40 threes. And that leaves me with 12. And now I've got a small number now. Now just think of multiples of 3, 3, 6, 9, 12. So that's 4 in the end. And now I can add all these up. So I got a 4, and I've got an 8, and it's 108 with 184. Sorry, 184 with no remainder. Now, the way you choose this, it's up to you. And people will get different answers, different groupings you'll remove. But you should end up with the same answer when you're done. This is one method. It's called the side. I call it side adding. The proper name is probably called partial products. It's just one of the two ways you can use. Also, there's a whole separate movie that I've made about side adding using cookies. Look for it in Google Classroom. Okay, here's the final method. We'll call it the basic long division that I grew up learning. So I'm going to try this one. 5 divided into 255. When you do this method, you really want to go digit by digit. So the first thing you do is you're going to look at 5 and see if it goes into the 2. 5 does not go into 2 because 2 is not larger than 5. So then I look at the next number and I compare these two numbers. Does 5 go into 25? Well, it does. It actually goes in 5 times. So I'm going to put the 25 down here because 5 times 5 is 25. Now what I do is I try to keep this in order, and the ones number is here, so I need to put that 5 right above there. Then after that I do subtraction. I got a 0 that time. I can bring down the 5, and 5 into 5, yeah, it goes in one time. Super simple. So that is 51 and 0, 0 remainder. That's supposed to be a 0 remainder. So that's how you do long division. That's a super easy question. Try this one. Give it a shot. That's it. That's the review for the math test multiplication division. What's missing from these examples are word problems, which we did as well in class. So the word problems are missing, but you should have some examples. Good luck, boys and girls. Divide and multiply. Goodbye.